All right, tell us your name.
Charles Babe Howell.
Coach Al, where do you live?
Well, I still have a home here in Jackson County. That's where we are today. And I'll continue with that as long as I live, and then my children, some of them will live here, I'm sure. And then Peggy and I have a home in Avery County, and we spend most of our time over there. She still works. She works in the tree business, and so that's our reason there. She's an Avery County girl.
Now, where were you born?
I was born in Monroe,
North Carolina?
in North Carolina, right?
Union County.
Union County.
Now,
6/25/28. That was a long time ago.
all right. Now, tell us your earliest baseball experiences.
Well, we played a lot of baseball. We were in a mill village, and there was a mill team that played other mill teams around in North and South Carolina. Monroe's near the state line, and that was a thing back in those days. So kids coming along just kind of worked themselves into the playing ball, and we didn't have anything like Little League or anything of that nature, but we did play a lot as, 10, 12, 15-year-old kids.
Now, you come from a large family. I know you've got a brother, because I met him.
Yeah, I have one brother, that's all I have left. We're 4 boys, and one daughter, one sister, and she passed away at an early age. She had leukemia, and we 4 kind of grew up, and the youngest brother, who was still alive, he came along kind of late in relation to the other 3 of us. But he was probably the most athletic. He went to East Carolina on a scholarship in football and also in baseball.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell us the progression of your baseball. You went from there.
Well, I played on the mill team, and I don't know.
Did you play at Western?
Yeah, I played at Western, but before I played at Western, I was in the military.
Okay.
And I played military ball. I was on a Navy team at Pearl Harbor, naval base team, and also at IEA. That's a naval hospital. I was there for a short period of time, and I was on a baseball team when I was there. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when I came to Western Carolina, I came there in the spring, and lo and behold, I was on a baseball team. And we traveled all over the place, and back then there wasn't any interstate highways or anything, so it was slow going between, say, from here to North Georgia College, and but we played a lot of those teams, and a lot of places we spent the night and everything. And so for somebody who was just starting to college, I was kind of having a hard time keeping my grades up, and but I worked that out within that year and the next year, and began to make decent grades.
What positions did you play?
I was a pitcher. I was a left-handed pitcher, and a lot of people called me Lefty back then, and a lot of people called me Babe. It was, when you were a kid, the infield would always shatter, and so it was, come on, Babe. That was just an expression, and then lo and behold, some people thought that Babe was my nickname or my name, you know. So anyway, that's kind of stuck with me all the year.
It stuck. What did you have? What pitches? What'd you have?
Well, you just had a fastball and a curveball and a let-up pitch.
No knuckle?
No. we didn't fool much with the knuckleball back then, because I really think throwing a knuckleball was, if you were making, the other pitches were pretty good, then a knuckleball took a lot of your time and everything when you could be working on things you did well.
Mm-hmm. What would you say was one of your main assets as a pitcher? How did you get by? What mentally and physically, what carried you?
Well, a lefty, most things that are done in baseball are right-handed. So a lefty gives you a different look. And I know I played at Berkeley Mills in Hendersonville for a couple of years with the Mill team there. That was after I was in, that was the same time I'd go from college ball at Western Carolina and go to Hendersonville and play there. So I was their lefty. So if you had a lefty and things were not going good and that sort of thing, well, then the left-hander gave the opposition a different look.
Mm-hmm. Give us your earliest connection to Silva.
Well, of course, going to school at Western Carolina, then Silva was, and you had to go through Silva to get to Western Carolina. So I'd say that was 1950 when I came to Western as a student, and then of course I married a girl from Webster. That was along about 1952, 51, 52, somewhere along in there, and so that was my earliest times with.
And then you spent time at Silva High School.
Yeah, it was in 1954. And I came to Silva as an assistant coach to Joe Hunt, and we were the only coaches in the school. And had a lot of coaching that year. I was an assistant in football, and I coached the girls and boys basketball teams, and then coached the baseball team. So,
In 54.
It was in 54.
Spring of 54.
That was the fall. That was the fall of 54 and the spring of 55.
54, spring of 55. I'm trying to get some of the people in place here. You wound up coaching Turkey Henson.
Well, I had Turkey basketball, but that's the only thing and then of course I had him football and basketball. But that was all he played. He didn't play anything else.
Okay. So you coached football in fall of 54.
The fall of 54.
Okay.
I had taken a job down near Salisbury, a little place called Granite Falls, and Joe Hunt had worked toward getting someone to help him, and finally they told him okay, so he came to see me, and I was in graduate school. My wife liked a couple of years finishing college, and so I felt like it would be best to tell those folks at Granite Falls that I had another job, and I felt like it was in my best interest to stay here and go to school and all. So what was your question? I forgot.
Well, you're covering the ground real well. I just wanted to kind of get some of the names of the people. In 54, you just missed coaching Ed Sutton.
That's right. Ed Sutton's a very good friend of mine. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Great athlete. And he and I, we knew one another from way back. when I first came to Cullowhee, he swam a lot, and I was in the gym a lot. And he was a competitor in swimming along with the other things that he did, and so he is a great guy.
He was a big tailback at that time, wasn't he?
He was. He only played 1 year of football, and that was at Silva. Back then, if you didn't play, if your school didn't have football or didn't have any other sport, you could go to the nearest school to you and play that sport and still be, and then go back. Well, you stayed at your regular school anytime. Anyway, he had. We would meet every day. I'd be going to football practice, and he would come home and pick up his cleats and everything and all, and do whatever he had to do at the house, and then he went back to Silva to practice football. So we'd meet and we'd chat and have a laugh and that sort of thing. And
so you got to watch? Did you watch him play high school football?
I saw him play his first high school football game. It was at Waynesville, and on the opening kickoff, he got the ball, and he had everybody whipped but one guy, and that guy just made a swat at his feet, and then kind of tripped him up. Otherwise, he'd had him a touchdown on his opening play of high school football. But he was a great player, and he just made that team, solidified them as far as having a true tailback.
Now, he wasn't just a good athlete. He was a great one, wasn't he?
He was a great athlete. I went to watch him play at Tennessee, and I also went to Chapel Hill. I can remember seeing him play Oklahoma. North Carolina played a brutal schedule when he was there. Georgia, Texas, just Team Notre Dame. For a long time they had a series with Notre Dame.
Had you known Joe Hunt for a considerable period of time?
No, not really. See, Joe had finished, and it was in his first year at Silva, and I was in my first year at Western. So through Ed, I had met him, and all that sort of thing, and he did know that I was, when I was graduating, that let's see, he knew when I was graduating that I might be available, and I'd taken that job at Granite Falls. I'd already signed contracts and everything. I hated to pick that phone up and tell that principal, because back then those principals come to the school and would recruit. And I can remember the superintendent of schools from Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. You could see him on campus almost any time. And he recruited a lot of Western Carolina graduates to go there. But anyway, Joe, it didn't take much for me to think about that was best for me.
After Silva, where'd you go?
Well, in 1956, well, first of all, with you mentioned names and everything, I can't remember. We played a few baseball games. We didn't even have any uniforms. Matter of fact, we didn't even have any caps. You just had a glove, and if you had a cap of some nature and a cap was your thing, you wore it, and otherwise you just bareheaded playing. We had two good pitchers, and Charles Baker Reed and Walt Henson, and Lionel Brooks, and Larry Stanbury were there, and we just had a good run of athletes, and it was a shame for them not to have the schedule and everything to play, but it was a very few games.
Mm-hmm.
I think I may have told you one ball game I had to didn't show up.
Coach stand up?
No, I got behind the plate and I put on everything that normally an umpire would wear. And Joe was my third base coach. He really didn't know a great deal about baseball, but he didn't mind putting a schedule together for us to play.
Joe's.
We kind of avoided the big schools, Pisgah and Waynesville. I can remember we played Bethel. And I don't know who was playing that game that day. We were when I had
Was Joe Hunt about your size?
yeah, he's a little heavier than I
A little
was.
stockier.
Yeah, he was a fullback.
Yeah.
And but I never did see him play. See, he had. I told you I came to the Western in the spring, and he had finished in the fall of '49, and there I was in the spring of '50, and that's when I came to Western.
Who was the principal at Silver then? Do you remember that?
Let's see, who was the principal? It was Galloway.
Galloway.
And then Carl Hooper.
Yeah.
They were my two principals there. And the reason I left Silva and went to Georgia, I'd completed my master's degree. Well, state of North Carolina had a rule at that time that you had to have 3 years of experience before they would pay you on a master's degree. So I'd gone down there and talked to these people, and not only did they pay me on a master's degree, they gave me 4 years teaching credit for being in the military, and all that sort of thing. And so I figured this would be crazy not to do this.
Now, what town was this?
This was in a little town called Morganton. It's not too far from Murphy. And Fannin County was the name of we were East Fannin. And I started a football program there. We helped dig the holes and shoot the dynamite in the holes for the poles and everything. So we literally built it from scratch, you know. And of course we had an anxious bunch of kids that really wanted to play football, and we did pretty good.
What were your colors and mascot at East Fannin? Who were you?
Black and gold. We were the Wildcats.
Wildcats. And you stayed there at that school how long?
I stayed there 4 years, and then I went to Canton, Georgia. And I went there as an assistant coach to a guy named Lowell Bansel. And this was at Cherokee County High. And this was a top classification, big school at that time, 1,500 students. And we played in the greater Atlanta area. So we played a tough schedule and everything. And I was there 5 years, so I was really gone from North Carolina for 9 years.
Now, in this experience in the state of Georgia, were you involved in a conference ever with a guy named Lord Cunningham?
Well, Lord and I believe Lord and I had played together. I can't really remember whether we were on the same teams or not, but see, after I'd finished undergraduate work, and I was doing my graduate work, I never did leave Boodleville, which was what we call people who were married and that sort of thing, and they lived in old army barrack-looking things that they bought from somewhere. But anyway, Lord and I probably were on a team, maybe two teams together. But we never did play ball against one another in Georgia. I knew him and he was well known. He did a lot of woodwork and everything, and that was his field where he did that type of work, and a lot of it got attention beyond the school where he was. He was in I think he was in the greater Atlanta area.
So then you knew not only Lard, but Grease and Coach Cunningham.
Yeah, I knew all of them. Yeah, I did. I knew them all.
And what all did you coach at the last high school in Georgia?
I coached, I was athletic director, and I was a football coach and a baseball coach. And those really were the basic things. And of course, I coached basketball and wrestling and track. Just trying to get some programs, get something going in school.
What was your high water mark in the state of Georgia?
Well, we went undefeated in 1963. And we go back there, Peggy and I do, to a Hall of Fame. And I'm in their Hall of Fame, Cherokee County Athletic Hall of Fame. It's the only undefeated team in the history of we didn't win a state championship because we didn't play a regional schedule. And that's what they call you down there. Rather than call you a conference, they call you a regional. But we had a great quarterback who went to Mississippi State, and Barry Bryant called him the SEC's best when he was playing there. And had a bunch of other kids that went off to play college ball.
And then?
In 1965, I had gone to Georgia in '56, and here it was, 1965. And Carr Hooker called me, and he told me that the job was open, and he'd like for me to come up and talk with him about it. So I did, and ended up coming back. And,
now you hit the ground running in '65, didn't you?
yeah, they'd had a tough year the year before. They'd only won, I don't know whether they won a ball game or not. They may have, 64. And in '65, I think we won 11 and lost 1. Same thing in '66. We had great players, great athletes, a number of them in there. Not only Tommy Love, but Gary Phillips, Gerald Inslee, and a bunch of other guys, Arthur Dillard. Right off the top of my head, I can't remember a lot of their names.
1965. Now, the Silver Webster High School had 1 year of integration under their belt at that time, didn't they?
They'd integrated in 1964.
Yeah.
And I only had 2 black kids on the team. That was Tommy Love and Leroy. Can't remember Leroy's last name right now.
Jackson.
Jackson. Right.
Okay, 65 and 66. Now, I bought a North Carolina High School Athletic Association. No, that's not what it is. I bought a publication about football in North Carolina, and I looked in there, and they did not have Silver Webster credited with the '65 state championship. It was really a district at that time.
Yeah.
It was as high as you could go. So
We were as much of a state champion as anybody else that won a district.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
So I emailed the lady that publishes a book, and I said, "Do you mean we've had these plaques hanging out here all this time and we ain't state champions?" Because she didn't have Silver Webster in there in '65. And buddy, it wasn't but a day that she fired back at me and said, "You're exactly right." She said, "It's our mistake. It's Silver Webster won it. It's, you know, it was the district as high as you could go."
Yeah.
In '65, she said, "We'll correct that next publication." So,
Well, you think one year in there we beat Maiden, I think it was, and Maiden is at Hickory, and then the next year we beat Elkin, and they're north and further east.
yeah.
So I don't know who else was in there as champions, coast state champions or whatever you want to call them, but if they'd have played us, they was in trouble.
I believe you beat Maiden 26-13.
Could have been.
I'm pretty sure that was a score. Because we got it. I talked to Kerry Noel too. And I said, you know, this book's not showing it, but we're going to get them to show it. So, Tommy Love and Leroy, and then '66. What, you were athletic director, head football coach at that time?
Yeah, in the spring of, first of all, in '60, after they consolidated the school, they only played football and basketball. And I think the first year out here, they didn't play girls basketball. Maybe 2 years that went by. But they were slow getting into girls basketball, so that was really all that was being played. So in the spring of '66, we started baseball. Of course we played anybody around had a schedule, you know. Some teams did not play baseball at that time.
And what else did you establish at Silver Webster?
We got track to going, and we got volleyball and wrestling, and well, we ended up with just about everything that you could mention. And I hated to get some of these things wound up because most of the time I had to coach like wrestling. And I finally pushed that off on Boyce. We'd hired Boyce at that time, Boyce and Doug. But a little bit of everything. We're swimming, they had swimming. And it kind of took care of itself as long as you had some water supply.
Mm-hmm.
Cross country, golf, tennis. We had a world-class tennis player out here. He had gone to school at Culloway in his grade school, and then he came to Silver Webster. His name was Lawson Duncan. And he, until his senior year, he was at Smoky Mountain, or Silver Webster. And then he went to Asheville for his senior year. His mother and father went over that way to work and that sort of thing. And then he went to Clemson as a freshman on a tennis scholarship. Played for the national championship and lost. And then he turned pro. And he played on all the continents and made a lot of money.
All right, now let's go over one thing, and then you can tell us a little bit about baseball. let's review. You had 5 state football championships at Silver Webster High School.
Right.
Let's go over the years. 65, 66, 72, 73, and 80.
Right.
2 state baseball championships.
Right.
And then another big feather in relation to the national scene of baseball. Stevie Streeter.
Oh yeah, Stevie he was a National High School Baseball Player of the Year, and well deserved to be. He set a bunch of national records, because at that time in North Carolina, I don't know about other states, you were not limited. Now you are. To if you pitch so many innings, that's all you can pitch that week, or there's 2 or 3 things in there like that. But he pitched every game of the season with the exception of one. He pitched with 1 inning. He pitched the 1 inning game. We had somebody else on the hill, and all he had ever had to have said to me was, "I can't go," and he never said, "I can't go." You know, he was anxious to take the ball. Great guy.
Now you also coached another championship game, but lost in that one.
That's right. We were at Hallsboro, and that was the year we went through a period of time there from 74 to 77, through 77, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we seldom lost a ball game, and we just had some phenomenal teams in there.
I was talking with somebody about this the other day, and I would say that you had the little gap there from 66 in football, where Silver Webster was not all that great. They were good, but not great. And I would say then in 70, you got it cranked back up.
Yeah.
That's my viewpoint of it, because I was watching you. I make the brag that I've watched more football games that Babe Howell coached than anybody but Babe Howell. I watched a lot of Babe Howell football. So I date you as far as really starting that dynasty. Of course, 65 and 66 started it. But then in 70, you started bringing it back. And that was an unbelievable period of time from 70 to 77.
Yeah. We won in football there, and I'm not much on numbers, I never have been. But in a 10-year period in the 70s, I think we won about 100 games in football. Somewhere thereabout. Maybe a little more or a little less. But I never have really, numbers were kind of insignificant as far as I was concerned, stats and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I never paid much attention to that. Winning is the bottom line, that's what we're trying to do.
At Silver High School, we're going to turn our attention a little bit to this 61 baseball team. You coached some of the relatives of these guys who went to Williamsport, probably in baseball at Silver High School.
Well, the only people that I can remember is Mike. What was Mike's last name? Mike. Won't come to me. There were 2 people on that team that I coached in Civil Webster. Mike Lewis, that's what I was trying to think of. Mike Lewis, and there was someone else, but I can't remember his name right off. And they were really the only two people that had gone to Williamsport that had were still at Smoky Mountain when or Silver Webster when I came there.
Now, you sent a number of people, pretty much a steady flow of football players on to college.
Right.
That's one of the Babe Howell trademarks. Is at the end of the season, you could pretty much figure Babe was going to put somebody in a college somewhere as an opportunity.
Right.
That didn't happen quite as much in baseball, did it?
No.
There was just.
I can remember when Steve was being recruited by some professional teams, and I talked with a scout from Cincinnati or somewhere, and Steve had already had a scholarship at the University of North Carolina for football, and he played baseball there, but it wasn't mentioned in his scholarship or anything, it was just football. But that scout, for some reason he didn't throw hard enough, or, stuff like that. But I think he'd been a great pro for player. Whether he could have gone to the top or not, I don't know. But, he could get them out. And of course Jimmy, his brother, he had someone trying to line him up at Arizona State when he was still in grade school, and they were going to pay his scholarship. And I don't know, there were a few other baseball people and all, but they just didn't pay that much attention to you. And then, of course, our location in the state, downstate, you've already got in a month or so before we could even get cranked up, So there wasn't a lot of attention paid to a lot of people.
I want to ask you this question. We're talking a lot about the decision that Joe Hunt made. At the time, were you aware of the decision that Joe made to not allow people to go to Williamsport and come back and play football that year?
Well, I heard a little of that. But see, I was in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And when we'd come up to visit here, my wife's family and all, we would hear some of that chatter, but I never paid a lot of attention to it. I understand that some people were bitter, and maybe so. It's kind of unusual about some of them not going, some of them going, some of them not going. When the Little World Series, or whatever they call it in Williamsport, first had its beginning, it was in the early 50s, and I had a brother, my youngest brother, I think that you met him, and he was a horse for his age, and that's what his nickname was horse. He's about 6'3" and weighed about 200 pounds, and he was playing Little League baseball. Well, they won the thing for North Carolina, and they were only, it was in its infancy, the Williamsport thing was. And there were only half a dozen, maybe 6, 8 teams that came to it. And Monroe was one of them. And they didn't take him. And the coach, his reasoning was that if we take him up there and we get into a squabble about his size and everything, we just feel like it's best to not take him up there. So they didn't take him. And
How did they fare when they got there?
well, they didn't win it. I don't know how they fared, but I know they didn't win it. But they might have if they had him, because he could tee off on it.
Well, one of the things that you've accomplished, and your accomplishments are many, is establishing the Jackson County Athletic Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was something that I had in mind, you know. And all this took place after they had fired me out here.
Yeah.
And I decided I'd go ahead with it, you know. So we cranked it up, and it's been going on now for about 18, 19 years. And this county has been blessed with a lot of great athletes. Among the people that we put in that Hall of Fame, one guy pitched a no-hitter in professional baseball, which was unusual at any classification. He wasn't in the majors, but I can't remember his name.
Not Johnny Oates.
No, not Johnny Oates. He goes back well beyond Johnny Oates. And then we had a lady.
Not Rush Sumner.
Russ Sumner, that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah, Russ.
Okay.
And then we had a lady who played with the Kansas City Redheads, which was a world-class women's basketball team. And she was a redhead. That was Jomita Higdon. And she was with him for a while. I mentioned the world-class tennis player. And of course, all of the athletes that have gone on to college and everything. Steve Streeter not only was an all-conference defensive back, he was also an all-conference punter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very unusual for a guy to be an all-conference player at that level. And, you know, it's just very unusual. Doesn't happen very often. You got another?
Coach, well, we don't want to take all of your morning, because we know we want you to be able to do the other things you want to do. But I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to give Brad an opportunity to ask you something that he may have thought up while we're sitting here.
No, I don't have any questions. I just enjoyed. I didn't know a lot of this stuff. Dad shared a lot of it with me, but thank you for taking the time to sit here with us. And you've got more important stuff to remember about sports around here than most people could ever come up with if you got 10 of them together.
Well, I don't know. I'm not much of a nostalgic person, so I don't really, you know, get into a lot of that. And I've been recognized just recently here. I was put into the North Carolina Athletic Directors Hall of Fame, which is considered an honor in North Carolina. And
Let's talk about those now. I know most of those things. Let's go over the halls of fame that you have been recognized in. Jackson County, you reluctantly went into the Jackson County Athletic Hall of Fame. I remember that. You're in the Western North Carolina Hall of Fame. You're in the Western Carolina University Hall of Fame. You're in the North Carolina High School Athletic Association Hall of Fame.
yeah.
As a coach, Now you're in the Western North Carolina Hall of Fame as an athletic director.
It's the state of North Carolina. But
State of North Carolina. As an athletic director.
Yeah.
In addition to football.
Yeah.
And in addition to being a coach.
I'm in the State Sports Hall of Fame, which covers a lot of high-class people, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Duke's coach, and North Carolina's coach, and all that sort of thing. You know.
Things you didn't chase, but you attained them. You didn't. I don't remember. I've known Coach Howell for a long time, and not really very close. I never knew you very close until about 1990. But I don't remember you seeking fame and fortune. Fame just came to you because of your accomplishments.
Yeah. I was watching that golfer who won the Masters here a couple Sundays ago, and you know, he really said about how I feel about it, and I can't really express it, but he didn't go into this business planning on being a Hall of Fame something, you know, and that's what he said. He said, I never dreamed of the Hall of Fame. Well, that's kind of where I am too. I'd like to play, and I'd like to win. I'd like to play by the rules and all that bit, and try to get along and all that sort of thing.
I tell people that Babe Howell's the kind of man and who can take his and beat you, or yours and beat his own. It's a coaching thing that's hard to come by. You know, that when you can take. I remember going to a lot of games, Coach, where I just pretty much wrote you off before the kickoff. I remember one time we went to Owen, and they had that Randolph Scott, and Owen was riding high. And Mary Lou Millwood was my secretary, and we worked it out between Don Millwood and my wife that Mary Lou would ride over there with me. She didn't want to go by herself, and Edna didn't want to go, so Mary Lou and I went over there. And maybe Owen was undefeated. And we walked in the stadium, and there was a strange feeling in that place. And I said, Mary Lou, mark it down. We're going to beat these people tonight. And she said, Lord, David, they're undefeated. We can't beat Owen with what we got. Her son was playing, Rick. I said, yeah, mark it down. It's done. It's a done deal. We will beat Owen tonight. And sure enough, we beat them with an odd score, 11-8 or something like that. And that Larry Bradley was your left-handed quarterback that year, I believe. And Rick was a wide receiver. Nobody did anything truly outstanding that night, but you held on and won. and sometimes, some nights that's what it is, isn't it? Just fight and hold on.
We kicked a field goal in there, I think. I can remember that game. As you say, they were undefeated, and I'm sure they took us for granted. And I never like to take anybody for granted. I preach that you don't take anybody for granted, but I'm sure they did. And they'd won 8 games, you know, and all that. But we didn't figure they'd do anything any different than they usually did, and they did. So we knew they had 8 people in the box, so to speak, and they played 3 deep secondary. Well, at that time, we'd split 2 to one side and 1 to the other. That took care of the secondary. One guy went after the one, the other